the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet. We're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome, everybody, and welcome, fellow patriots. Welcome once again to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. We are everywhere. We are everywhere. And will be joining me in a little bit. She's detained by her daytime job. But in the mean, we've asked Pastor Greg Young to join us. Pastor Greg can be heard here on WNJC 1360, Monday through Friday, from 12 noon to 2 p.m. Eastern Time with Chosen Generation. Pastor Greg, thank you for joining me on Conservative Commandos radio show.
Oh, hey, Rick, it is just great to be here with you and with all the listeners there on WNJC 1360 AM and Conservative Commando Radio on the flagship show, man. This is the big time.
This is it. This is it, buddy. And Pastor Greg, we have a lot of great guests lined up for Conservative Commandos today. But something very interesting is happening today. There is a meeting taking place at Facebook headquarters where they have invited conservative leaders from across the country to come to Facebook to discuss what? Discuss that Facebook has discriminated against conservatives, should we say? And one of the reasons that I've asked you to join us is I know you have had, along with a whole bunch of other people, but you have had your own run-ins with Facebook. And could you tell our audience a little bit about that?
Absolutely. Well, if you go to my Facebook page, it's facebook.com/DoseGhostman. And you'll notice that I am Greg Young over there. Pastor Greg Young is in parentheses, but I was formerly known as Pastor Greg Young on Facebook for many, many years, probably about 5 or 6 years, and I did an interview with someone that we brought on to the Thursday edition, which is Attorney Robert Dekla, talking about the genocide of Assyrian Christians and what's happening to our Assyrian Christian brothers and sisters. And in the process of that, Robert shared the story about the tactics that are being used by this administration to try and stop him from gaining asylum for Christians while they continue to perpetuate bringing over Muslims and in this refugee surge that they're bringing about. And he talked about the Gestapo-like tactics that are being used to force the mothers, the women in the home, by taking their families into the living room, taking the women into a back bedroom, and threatening to deport the entire family if the women didn't lie about Robert and about his efforts to gain them asylum. And so I posted that information on my Facebook page along with Robert's interview that he did with me on Chosen Generation Radio. The next morning, when I went to access my Facebook page, Rick, I couldn't access the page. It was very strange, and I thought, well, that's odd. So I actually went to a couple of different devices that I was logged on, my computer, my phone, and my tablet, and in all three instances, I was not able to access and there was this strange message that came up that said that I needed to validate my identity. And of course, with all the hacking that happens, I initially thought, "Wow, somebody's hacked my account, and they're trying. This is bogus." But it turned out that Facebook had closed me off of my account, and they sent me a message, and they said, "You are no longer allowed to use any name other than the name that is on your federally given ID, either your birth certificate or some other kind of identification." Government identification. So I ended up finally having to take my driver's license, block the address, and send that over to them. And then they sent me a follow-up email telling me that I no longer had access to the name setting on my Facebook account.
Now, they let you use Greg Young. They will not let you use Pastor Greg Young. Now, just to be clear about things, you are an ordained minister. Is that correct?
I have been an ordained minister since 2002 for almost 15 years now. I was ordained through Bishop Steve Miller and Bishop Richard Hurd, Christian Tabernacle Church in Houston, and another church in Orange County, California. Ceremony was carried on there in Southern California, and in attendance was my wife, my mom, my sister, my brother-in-law, and family members, along with, of course, the congregation where I received my ordination. And I've gone by Pastor Greg and Pastor Greg Young for 15 years, and it just was shocking. And here's something that's funny.
I only ask you that, Pastor Greg. I only ask you that because I want the audience to know this isn't some title you bestowed upon yourself. This wasn't anything you bought through the mail or something like that. You are an ordained minister.
Yes, sir.
And yet they're not. And yet Facebook will not let you use the name Pastor Greg Young. Did they give you any idea what they objected to?
They simply said that I had violated their community standards and I should probably read the community standards over again. Now the irony of this, Rick, is that, of course, we've had Attorney Dekla on the program. I've talked about what's happening with those Assyrian Christian saints, and I haven't, had some other part of my name removed. Just simply the word pastor, and they didn't change it to Gregory, which is actually the actual name that's on the driver's license and on my birth certificate is Gregory, and they didn't change it to that. They left it as Greg. So it was a direct attack, really, on my standing as a pastor, and really, my choice of religious preference.
I've also been in Facebook jail, if you want to call it that, Pastor Greg Young, and it was a post that I put up, and it was a link to a Wikipedia page for Nazi, and what I was trying to get across to my Facebook followers was Nazi stood for National Socialism, and that's the path that this country was going down. Lo and behold, right after that, I found I could not access my accounts, my Facebook pages, or my accounts, or even the groups that I started. Okay, one for Conservative Commandos radio show, couldn't access that group, and a couple of community pages because I used the word Nazi. The word Nazi, not calling anybody a Nazi, but referring to Nazis as National Socialist on Facebook. For that, I found myself in Facebook jail. Many of my Facebook friends have had their accounts deleted and frozen and found themselves in Facebook jails because of different posts that they put in. But for quite some time, people have speculated there's a bias against conservatives and conservative groups by Facebook. And finally, it's coming out as true. A couple of former employees have come forward and says, yes, we do discriminate. And yes, we've talked about hurting people like Donald Trump and helping people like Hillary Clinton and Bernie Sanders. I'll give Facebook one thing. At least they are facing this. At least they're sitting down to talk to conservative leaders, something that a lot of other news outlets and publications like the New York Times has not done. Other news organizations that has biased against conservatives, at least Facebook is recognizing that they have a problem.
Well, you would have to think with the number of individuals that participate and the influence Facebook has, and the fact that there are a lot of different ideologies presented, that that at some point Zuckerberg's a pretty smart business guy. And I'll tell you another driving factor on this may well be there's a brand new platform called MeWe. Really been
MeWe,
MEWE, and they are very privacy driven. They're very friendly to the conservatives. They are not touting themselves as the conservative alternative,
right?
But they are definitely very friendly to that, and again, very friendly to the whole privacy issue. And they're starting to gain some significant ground. And I think Zuckerberg was beginning to say to himself and his board, if we run all the conservatives off, we're likely to get ourselves in trouble here.
Yeah. Hey, Pastor Greg,
there's another platform. Go ahead,
Pastor Greg. Can I ask you to just hold on for 2 minutes? We have to take care of a little business here. And while we're doing that, I'm going to look up this MeWe. But you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young. I'm Rick Trader, and hopefully will be joining us in a little bit. And we're coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM, 24/7. We are everywhere. We're everywhere. Today's show is being brought to you by the First Amendment. Gee, we're talking about that. And it is protected by the Second. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
We're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. Anna Little hopefully will be joining us in a little bit. Joining me today is Pastor Greg Young. But if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 9 p.m., redstatetalkradio.com. You can also hear our show any time of the day. Not only our show, but all the shows that are associated with the Conservative Commandos radio network here at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. That's 832-999-1199. You don't need an app. You don't need to download anything. You don't need to buy anything. You just need that telephone number, 832-999-1199. We've got a great list of guests for you all today, and let me just go through them. Joining us at 3:35 will be Robert Knight. He is a senior fellow for the American Civil Rights Union and a Washington Times contributor. And Robert has written a very interesting piece entitled Loretta Lynch's Abuse of the Law. So we'll be discussing that with Robert Knight at 3:35. Then at 4:05, we'll have Rudy Takala joining us. Rudy is a watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner with a focus on technology and cybersecurity. And he has written an article that I'm sure you'll find interesting. Foreign hackers likely spying on presidential candidates. And this comes from a U.S. intelligence chief. So that'll be Rudy Takala at 4:05. And then at 4:35, we'll be speaking with Chris Harris. Chris Harris serves as the executive director of unhyphenatedamerica.org. And he is a staunch Christian conservative. And he moved from Colorado to Washington, D.C. as a congressional intern for long-serving U.S. Representative Joe Hafley. And Chris is going to be joining us to talk about why we're losing the culture. Why we're losing the culture. So that'll be a very interesting conversation. So, Pastor Greg Young, we were talking about Facebook and this meeting that is happening today out in California at Facebook Conservatives, involving a group of conservative leaders. And one of those leaders, Rob Louie from the Heritage Foundation, he is at that meeting. He will be joining us tomorrow on the Conservative Commandos radio show. So we'll get a first take. We'll get an eyewitness account of what happened at this meeting and was any progress made. So that'll be tomorrow on the Conservative Commandos radio show. Pastor Greg, I listened to your show, Chosen Generation, today. You had a terrific lineup of guests. Herb London, our friend Joe Messina, David Horowitz. I mean, what a cast.
You know, I thought it was a great program, and it's always a pleasure to have such tremendous people on the show. David, of course, is very interesting. Here's a guy who grew up just completely and totally on the liberal side of all of this, and to hear his frustration that Republicans as a whole, in his opinion, don't accept the fact that we are at war and won't take on war tactics in order to try to beat this back. We're not going to win this if we're not willing to recognize the battle that we're in. You certainly can't fight a fire by pretending that the fire isn't happening.
Yeah, I mean, I found it interesting how he almost, it sounded a little bit pessimistic about the future of it, about the future of things. He implored conservatives and Republicans to work together, but it was a very interesting interview. The interview with Herb London was also interesting.
I love having Herb London on, and a lot of that is because there's so many different areas of expertise that Mr. London is able to speak to. Of course, he's been in this battle for a very long time, and we were able to really take that conversation to a lot of different levels. One of the things that he keyed in on, of course, was the issue with Ben Rhodes and the just the blatant idea from the liberal left that Americans are stupid. Once again, you have the left saying Americans are ignorant, Americans are stupid. And for those of us coming from the conservative side, that's not what we believe, folks. We don't believe that Americans are dumb. I don't. I believe that you have been fed lies to the point that you have not been given any truth. So you're really there's a brainwashing, Rick, that I think has taken place, and that really is in part where we have to begin. We've got to take back the language, the culture, and that was one of Herb's comments was, we better recognize that we've got to take the culture back.
Indeed, and I'm trying to think of the guy's name. He was a Clinton guy, kind of looks like a snake. What the heck is his name? Help me out there, Pastor Greg.
The one that was married to a conservative.
Yes, right. James Carville.
Yep.
James Carville come out recently and said that 80% of Democrat voters are stupid. And that, to me, that was shocking coming from like James Carville. And I think they realize that. Here you go. James Carville says 80% of Dems are politically clueless. He didn't call them stupid. He called them clueless. 80% of Democrats are politically clueless. And I think they work on this cluelessness. That when you look at Pastor Greg, you know what? We're going to have to pick this up at another time because we're coming up on another break, and you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young sitting in for Anna Little till she gets here. I'm Rick Trader, and we're all coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. Don't go away. On the other side, we're going to be speaking with Robert Knight about Loretta Lynch's abuse of the law. Be right back.
This is Frank Giordano, president of Philly Pops. The Your Music Matters morning show and the Philly Pops have put together a great event on May 23rd at the Investors Bank Performing Arts Center in Washington Township. The Philly Pops presents the All South Jersey Jazz Festival. 6 finalist high school jazz bands, all from South Jersey, will perform. Schools were chosen during the recent South Jersey High School Jazz Band Competition on the Your Music Matters morning show on WNJC. At the concert, each band will be performing. The show will also feature the Philly Pops Big Band Ensemble. The highlight of the evening will be the announcement of the winning high school band, who will play with the Pops Ensemble. Tickets are available at the box office for $20 and $10 for students. Tickets are also available at Ticketmaster.com. More information about the competition can be found online by going to 1360radio.com or seniormatters.info. Hope to see you there on the 23rd and listen to these young people perform.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader, and a little hopefully will be joining us a little later. In the meantime, Pastor Greg Young from Chosen Generation is sitting in with us. And if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., log on to roarradio.net, or at 7 p.m., please log on to redstatetalkradio.com. Our first guest of the day is a gentleman I always enjoy talking with, Robert Knight. He's a senior fellow for the American Civil Rights Union and a Washington Times contributor. His experience includes 7 years as editor and writer at the Los Angeles Times, and a regular weekly columnist at the Washington Times, Town Hall, and One News Now. Bob, thanks for joining us today. Great to have you back on the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Always good to be on with you, Rick.
Well, that's the way I feel. We always love having you on. I love your articles. And I'll tell you, Rob, the way I do my show prep is I take an article and I mark it up with a pen. And I know it's a great article when just about every line is marked, and that's what I've done with your article here today. An article entitled Loretta Lynch's Abuse of the Law. And Bob, you start your article by saying, when Loretta Lynch succeeded Eric Holder as U.S. Attorney General a year ago, some harbored the tiniest hope she wouldn't be quite as radical. So, Bob, can we back up for a minute and talk about how radical Eric Holder was?
He's about as radical as they get. He landed in office right after the Obama administration took power, and he immediately accused Americans of not talking about race enough, which was a sly way of accusing America of being overwhelmed with racism. And right after that, he dismissed charges against the new Black Panther Party in the most egregious, open example of voter intimidation anybody's seen in recent years. They were pounding billy clubs and walking around in camouflage suits outside a polling place in Philadelphia in 2008, intimidating voters who wouldn't go for Barack Obama. And he dismissed those charges. Then he turned the Justice Department into a completely partisan operation, and a racist one at that. And we have that in good authority from J. Christian Adams, who was an attorney in the Civil Rights Division, and Chris Coates, who ran the Civil Rights Division, or the Voting Rights Division, I'm sorry. And they both said that the underlings made it clear that any complaints from white people about anything, civil rights violations of any kind, wouldn't be taken seriously. They'd only look at minorities. So the Justice Department wasn't blind under Eric Holder, and that's just the beginning. He presided over the Fast and Furious gun running scandal. He didn't pursue charges against the IRS after they abused the Tea Parties. He's gone after voter ID laws, state laws like Arizona's about enforcing immigration law. In short, Eric Holder turned the U.S. Justice Department into an arm of the radical leftist movement.
Well, there's also other things, according to your article, that he slowed down any action regarding Hillary Clinton's private email server, and also investigating the Clinton Foundation. And this is just a list that goes on and on and on, a list of abuses that the Attorney General, help me out here, I'm not the smartest bulb on the tree. I learn from people like you. But did he not take an oath of office to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States?
Yes, he took the same oath that Barack Obama took and then completely ignored, and both have been ignoring for years. I failed to mention that the minute he got in, Eric Holder announced that he was not only not defending the Defense of Marriage Act, but openly undermining it in court. I mean, he decided which laws he wanted to enforce and which not. And so his oath was just a joke. Mm-hmm. And I'm afraid Loretta Lynch, who some people hoped would not be quite as radical, has turned out every bit as radical.
Well, I wanted to ask you about that because you write in your article, the partisan corruption underholder was so patently obvious that his departure made some folks cautiously optimistic that Lynch would put, quote, justice back into the Justice Department. And Bob, I gotta ask the question, where did that optimism come from? After all, she was just another Obama appointment.
Well, she was not as outspoken as Eric Holder. She kind of kept her peace, and some people said she was pleasant to deal with, unlike Eric Holder. But they should have seen this coming. J. Christian Adams, who worked in the voting section, saw it coming, wrote about it, warned people, and yet a number of Republicans, 10 Republican senators, broke ranks and voted to confirm her. Here are some of them: Kelly Ayotte, New Hampshire; Orrin Hatch of Utah; Lindsey Graham, South Carolina; Susan Collins of Maine; Jeff Flake of Arizona; Mark Kirk of Illinois; Rob Portman of Ohio; Thad Cochran of Mississippi; Ron Johnson of Wisconsin; and Mitch McConnell of Kentucky. They all voted for this woman. And what has she done since she got in?
Well, I want to talk about what she's voted or what she's done since she was confirmed by the Senate, but we have to take a break. Bob, could you hold on for just 2 minutes for us, please?
Sure.
You are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young, sitting in for Anna Little. I'm Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, HighPlainsDailyNews.com, AM/FM 24/7. Our guest this segment is Robert Knight, Senior Fellow for the American Civil Rights Union and a Washington Times contributor. We're talking about Loretta Lynch's abuse of the law. Be right back.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage, because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show. I'm Rick Trader. Pastor Greg Young is sitting in for Anna Little. We hope that Anna can join us a little later. But if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Mornings at 9 a.m. Log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m. rurradio.net or at 9 p.m. Please log on to redstatetalkradio.com, or you can hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Robert Knight, Senior Fellow for the American Civil Rights Union and a Washington Times contributor. Robert also was a media fellow at the Hoover Institute. He's also been with the Heritage Foundation, the Family Research Council, Concerned Women for America, the Media Research Center, and he's the author of 5 books and co-authored another. Robert, thanks for holding through that break. We appreciate your time.
Oh, thanks for having me again, Rick.
Bob, just before we went to the break, we were talking about Eric Holder and how radical he was. Let's compare Eric Holder now with Loretta Lynch.
Well, she's done a few things just recently that show her true colors, and I think that the most egregious is filing a lawsuit against the state of North Carolina for their law that says you have to use the bathroom according to your sex, not who you think your sex is, but what your biological sex is. She made some remarks that are just spectacularly bizarre, like this one. Quote, none of us can stand by when a state's in the business of legislating identity and insists that a person pretend to be something they're not, unquote. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, it's the men who are pretending to be women and vice versa who are forcing the issue. They're the ones pretending, and she's saying, oh no, this is who they really are, even though they're born completely female or male with the DNA, the brain structure, the plumbing apparatus, the everything about them is either male or female, and she's saying, no, that's not who they are, it's who they think they are. And of course this is a bit of insanity on steroids. And you have the federal government under Barack Obama and executed by Attorney General Loretta Lynch pushing around states. And on Friday they sent a letter with the education department threatening every school district in America, saying that you've got to let confused boys into restrooms and locker rooms with girls, and you got to use the pronouns that they prefer, or we're going to threaten your federal funding.
Well, you know,
imagine our founders ever dreaming that the central government in this country would, the highest officials in the land, reach down into America's restrooms and enforce a bit of insanity.
Well, you know, I think that as dangerous. But just as dangerous as that is domestically, you know, again, your article reminds us that last Thursday, the Justice Department revealed that it would not seek the death penalty for the terrorist suspect who orchestrated the attack on the consulate in Benghazi.
Yeah.
I mean, if anybody should face the death penalty, it should be someone who perpetrated something as heinous as that.
I would agree. Taking it off the table says, the lives of those 4 Americans killed in Benghazi are just not worth the same lives that we think are worthy, including those of the suspects. I find it just amazing, and it really does send a signal around the world that we're not seriously fighting terrorism the way we need to do. Here's another radical thing she did, Rick, and that was she sided with radical groups like the ACLU, and who sued to overturn requirements for proof of U.S. citizenship when voting in Alabama, Arizona, Georgia, and Kansas.
Wait, what should an attorney general be doing? Those are laws, Robert Knight. Those are laws. She's the head of the Justice Department. I'm so frustrated I can't even speak.
Oh, I know, it's crazy. And what her attorneys did was go after the Election Assistance Commission, which helps states conduct their elections. And that commission said, yeah, these laws are fine with us. And the Justice Department said, no, they aren't. And they went after this federal agency. Well, their job is to defend the federal agencies and that uphold U.S. laws. So, I mean, they're utterly lawless. Okay, can I just say that? They're lawless at this point.
Well, you should be the Attorney General. At least you know what lawlessness is. Hey, Bob, on the other line, I do have my co-host today, Pastor Greg Young. Pastor Greg is the host of Chosen Generation, which is part of the Conservative Commandos radio network here on WNJC 1360. And, Pastor Greg, I know you have a couple questions for Bob Knight.
Thank you, Rick. Bob, thanks so much for being with us today. I appreciate it. Pastor Greg here. You talked about J. Christian Adams. I've had J. Christian as well as Hans von Spakovsky on my program a number of times. One of the things that J. Christian has talked about is the reshaping of the Department of Justice, and you talk about that in your article. That coupled with the fact that Obama has now appointed nearly 50% of the federal judges around the country really puts this in a situation where this agenda is going to be with us for a very long time. What do you see as some of the changes that need to be made in order to get back control, provided that we do have an administration change in January?
Well, the first thing that the new president should do, assuming it's not Hillary Clinton, is clean house at the U.S. Justice Department. It's been infiltrated by lifelong radicals who have no interest in upholding the law. Their only interest is in advancing the left-wing agenda on every issue imaginable. And Christian Adams did a wonderful job chronicling all this in the book Injustice, exposing the racial agenda of the Obama Justice Department. He saw it from the inside, how they just weren't interested at all in upholding the law. And here's an example. A judge just blocked the state of Kansas from requiring proof of citizenship before he can vote in Kansas. A federal judge just did that. It was this morning or yesterday. And, of course, that was at the behest of the Justice Department and the ACLU. Think about it for a minute. This is we're supposed to be a nation of laws, and so you have to be a U.S. citizen to vote in U.S. elections. But that's a meaningless requirement if you don't have to show proof of citizenship. Anybody could just say, yeah, I'm a citizen, and go ahead and vote. So these several states got together and said, we really ought to put it in the law that people have to prove they're citizens. And not so fast, the Justice Department said. And apparently this federal judge agreed yesterday. But apart
really
from
crazy.
The new president has to appoint judges in the model of Antonin Scalia, who believe that the basis of our laws is our Constitution, and that limits the roles of the federal, state, and local governments. They each have things to do, and when they overstep, it's the job of the courts to say so. And that's not been the pattern in recent years of all these Obama appointees, and you still see Clinton judges doing damage around the country, and even some Jimmy Carter judges. Whenever I see a wacko ruling, I look up the judge, see who appointed them, and most often it's Jimmy Carter, Bill Clinton, or Barack Obama. Every once in a while you see a bad Republican appointee also that makes your head hurt.
Right.
But not as often, and it's not a pattern.
Well, I had one other question for you, Bob, if you don't mind, and that was this. Loretta Lynch has injected herself into Ferguson, into Baltimore, into all of these, again, racially charged issues. And it seems as though she is pushing, and actually announced it at the UN, an international globalist police force agenda. How do we put a stop to this?
Well, I think elections have consequences. And I happen to think the American people are having some buyer's remorse at this point, that they put in the most radical administration in history. The only way to stop it, and well, actually Congress has lots of ways to stop it. They have the power of the purse, they have the power of investigation. They should have been far more diligent in defending their own turf and defending the rights of American citizens than they have, which is why we're seeing so much upheaval in America today. And Paul Ryan, I guess, is going to be primaried, the House Speaker, because they feel that he's not been an effective opponent of the Clinton or the Obama administration's radicalism. So right now, people can urge Congress to fight back and do what they should have been doing all along. But beyond that, they ought to look to elect conservatives, not just people with R behind their name, or perhaps the handful of blue dog Democrats, but real conservatives. Look at their record and work for them. Try to get them elected. I didn't think government shouldn't be this consequential in a free country. We shouldn't have to worry so much about who's president, who our senator is, etc. But the left has made it so we all have to care.
Hey, Robert, I hate to interrupt, but we only have a minute left. I got to get this question in.
Okay.
So why is there not been any or very few calls for impeachments? Not just on Holder or Lynch or these other radical judges who do not use the Constitution as a basis of law.
Well, and John Koskinen, the IRS commissioner.
Yeah, there's another.
They've been talking about impeaching him. They haven't done it yet. He might actually get impeached. The short answer is the media. They would paint anybody trying to impeach people in the Obama administration as racists, bigots, who want to hurt the first black president. It really comes down to that. That's why Republicans have been so inconsequential in their opposition. They're terrified of the media. They got to get over it.
Indeed they do.
Say what you will about Trump. He spoke right over their heads and used them to his effect. Maybe they could take a page from that.
Well, somebody needs to grow a pair. Robert Knight, Senior Fellow of the American Civil Rights Union, Washington Times contributor. Please tell our audience where they could find your story and all your work.
Okay, the ACRU is the best place. TheACRU.org. That's not the American Civil Liberties Union. That's the American Civil Rights Union.
All right. Robert Knight, Bob Knight. Boy, I'm all over the map with your name. Bob Knight, thank you for joining us. Always appreciate your time. Take care. God bless.
You too.
And you are listening to Conservative Commandos radio show. Coming to you live from the studios of the Conservative Commandos Radio Network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia. Around the world on the internet with American Patriots Podcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7, HighPlainsDailyNews.com. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. Don't go away. On the other side, we'll be speaking with Rudy Taclia, watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiners, about foreign hackers likely spying on the presidential candidates. Be right back.
President of Philly Pops. The Your Music Matters morning show and the Philly Pops have put together a great event on May 23rd at the Investors Bank Performing Arts Center in Washington Township. The Philly Pops presents the All South Jersey Jazz Festival. 6 finalist high school jazz bands, all from South Jersey, will perform. Schools were chosen during the recent South Jersey High School Jazz Band competition on the Your Music Matters morning show on WNJC. At the concert, each band will be performing. The show will also feature the Philly Pops Big Band Ensemble. The highlight of the evening will be the announcement of the winning high school band, who will play with the Pops Ensemble. Tickets are available at the box office for $20 and $10 for students. Tickets are also available at Ticketmaster.com. More information about the competition can be found online by going to 1360radio.com or seniormatters.info. Hope to see you there on the 23rd and listen to these young people perform.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired, as I am, about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young sitting in for Anna Little. I'm Rick Trader, and for rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com, or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com, at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 7 p.m., please log on to redstatetalkradio.com, or you can hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Our next guest is Rudy Takala. He's a watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner, where he focuses on technology and cybersecurity. Previously, he wrote for CNSnews.com. And Rudy, welcome to the Conservative Commandos radio show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Rudy, we've asked you to join us today to discuss an article that you wrote, Foreign Hackers Likely Spying on Presidential Candidates. And this comes from a U.S. intelligence chief. Give us the background on this.
Well, he stated today that foreign intelligence agencies are likely trying to hack the leading presidential contenders. We don't know how successful they've been. That revelation by itself doesn't come as a shock. Obviously, that's something that intelligence agencies engage in. The extent of their success is something that we'd wonder about. We already know that they have tried to hack Hillary Clinton's private server, and probably were successful in doing that. So we know that she's been compromised in the past. Donald Trump's organizations have been victim to hackers in the past, like the Trump hotel chain, things of that nature. But we don't know how successful they've been in terms of getting, really actionable intelligence from the actual campaigns or from the individual.
Rudy, we have to take this right down the order. Who is doing the hacking?
Well, the top suspects are always China and Russia. We know that this is something that they engage in, like anybody with a respectable intelligence organization is going to do. In terms of Hillary's server, we also know that in addition to those two, Germany and South Korea tried to hack it by sending phishing emails. So those are the top four, but China, Russia, and Western intelligence agencies generally have the most sophisticated capability. Israel is another one that comes to mind that would engage in that kind of activity, and it's not that out of the ordinary. It's something that the United States would do as well. But when you're talking about the most sophisticated organizations, those are the countries you're looking at.
Well, Rudy, you mentioned phishing emails. Rudy, I get those all the time, but it's pretty easy to recognize them. I would think these campaigns would be sophisticated enough, or at least have people like you working for them who can separate them.
Well, the phishing emails that we generally most commonly receive are from common criminals.
Right.
If you take that to like a physical example, your common criminal is the brightest person. When you're talking about foreign intelligence agencies, let's look at Guccifer, for example, the Romanian who said he hacked Clinton's server. May or may not be true, but we do know he hacked Sidney Blumenthal, a Hillary advisor. The way he did that was by reading his biography, reading about his life, guessing what his password was. So you had one guy, Sidney, who had a bad password. Guccifer got into that account, and then he allegedly sent an email from that account to Hillary Clinton and used that as leverage to get in. So she thought it was coming from somebody she knew, It looked entirely plausible, and that was Lucifer, who's not a common criminal, but not at all sophisticated. So when you're talking about a highly sophisticated organization, if they target you, you really have no chance of not falling victim to that, unless you either keep your email private or you're working on government networks.
Rudy, again, I have to follow this through. Who, what, where, when, how, why. Why are they doing this? Why are they looking for? What are they looking for?
Generally, they'll be looking for information on what policy is going to look like. So, and for that, usually they'll be hacking current officials, for example, trade officials, ambassadors. So they may be looking for information on whether the candidates mean what they say. They might also be looking for content that they could use to blackmail them. But again, if you're in that position and you have any common sense, somebody like Hillary Clinton is not going to put anything that would allow her to be blackmailed, into an electronic format. I don't know if she was thinking that way 6 years ago when she was running a private server, but certainly she would be thinking that way now. So information on policy, blackmail, also whatever contacts they might have. Let's say somebody is advising them. They might want, that we don't know about. Those foreign intelligence agencies, those governments might want to know about it. They want to know. They want to be a step ahead of what Americans know.
Rudy, in your article, you wrote, evidence suggests that foreign intelligence agencies are spying on American presidential candidates. What evidence are we seeing?
We don't have that evidence, but the comments came from the Director of National Intelligence, James Clapper. Mm-hmm. And I mean, obviously you don't need evidence to know that they're making the attempt, because this has been something that's growing, and there are no treaties, there is no prohibition on it. This is something that, this is a matter of reciprocity. The United States does not have a treaty with China to prohibit this kind of hacking. This is completely fair, and James Clapper has said as much in the past. So we know they make the effort. All that's really, in question is to what extent are they successful? That's really the only question, and we don't know that. And whatever the intelligence, community knows, they probably aren't going to share with us.
Rudy, what about, do you think there is a chance or likelihood of the campaigns trying to hack each other?
I'm sorry, of the what entities trying to hack each other?
The campaigns trying to hack each other, like the Clinton campaign trying to hack into Sanders, or the Trump campaign trying to hack into Clinton.
Gotcha. Well, obviously, if that's taking place, that's something the candidates themselves would want to know nothing about. I suppose that possibility is there, but particularly with the FBI and the intelligence community monitoring this so closely, that isn't something that I think would be very sensible for anyone to engage in. Something else that Clapper said that was interesting was that he said this is happening to both candidates. He didn't give any other identifying information, but he did say both, which would seem to insinuate that somebody is being left out of official protection, which we would assume is Bernie Sanders. So that's what I would take away from that comment.
Or else he's dismissing Bernie Sanders in his own mind. Hey, Rudy, we got to take a short break. Could you hold on for just 2 minutes? Because there's a couple other areas I'd like to go with you on this, okay?
Sure.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young and yours truly, Rick Trader, coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, AM, FM 24/7, HighPlainsDailyNews.com. Don't go away. We're speaking with Rudy Tackley Takala from the Washington Examiner. Be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage, because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back to Conservative Commandos. And if you'd like to hear a rebroadcast of our show, check out our websites, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. At 1 p.m., roarradio.net. At 7 p.m., please log on to redstatetalkradio.com, where you can hear our show any time of the day from your phone by calling 832-999-1199. Our guest this segment is Rudy Takala. He's a watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner, and we're discussing foreign hackers likely spying on presidential candidates. Rudy, thanks for holding through that break. We really do appreciate your time.
Sure thing.
Rudy, you talked about some of the suspects who might be doing this, the spying, and you mentioned China and Russia, which I could kind of understand that. But you also mentioned, and you mentioned in your article, some of our supposed allies like Germany, South Korea, and Israel. Why would our allies want to be spying on the candidates?
Well, two of those three, Germany and South Korea, were confirmed as having tried to hack Hillary's server. That is something Israel would engage in as well, and it also has the technical capability. But it's really not outside of the norm for international standards, and it's something that the U.S. engages in. If you recall the Snowden leaks in 2013, the U.S. was found to have been spying on the German Chancellor's cell phone. So it's entirely something that is normal and something the U.S. engages in itself. And really, there's nothing to stand in the way of it. If you, for example, there's a recent vulnerability that was discovered in a global cellular network known as SS7. Through that vulnerability, anybody who has a given cell phone number, anyone who has access to that network, can see pretty much anything that goes on a cell phone. That generally is going to exclude a common hacker, but any halfway decent intelligence agency has access to telecommunication networks of that nature, which means that any cell phone number that a foreign government can get, they can spy on. So it's really not that difficult, and there's nothing to preclude it in terms of international norms.
Or maybe we all need to go off the grid, who knows. Here on the Conservative Commandos radio show, we're speaking with watchdog reporter for the Washington Examiner, Rudy Takla. And Rudy, on the other line, I do have my co-host with me, Pastor Greg Young, who has questions for you. Pastor Greg?
Hey, Rudy, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it. I'm Pastor Greg, Chosen Generation Radio Program. Question for you. With the emergence of groups like Anonymous, who have obviously proven their capabilities in capturing and gathering information, how much of a concern do you think that there might be other groups like that, or even terrorist organizations who might be able to capture information, not necessarily act upon it now, but wait to see who's in the White House and then make their move?
Well, if you're talking about in terms of blackmail, something I said earlier is that anybody in a position of prominence is aware, should be aware at this point that nothing that they could be blackmailed with should be saved in an electronic format or transmitted in an electronic format. So number one, that shouldn't be happening. Probably they wouldn't be in that position if they were making that mistake. Secondly, that is a growing concern with an organization like the Islamic State. They do have technical capability. That's something they've been pursuing, although at this time they are still nowhere near the level of sophistication that an intelligence agency is at. And then in terms of a group like Anonymous, that's a fairly haphazard group. They are not centrally organized. Anyone who wants to claim to be a member can do so. So that's a very broad term in terms of sophistication. Some of the members do have a very high level of technical ability. But generally they use that for things like crashing websites, which is something they've done to Trump multiple times since he announced it last July. So generally they, and destructive acts, DDoS attacks, as they're called, are a lot easier to accomplish than hacking into an email, for example.
I was thinking, I was in Russia, or in Air Force intelligence as a Russian linguist, and a lot of our gathering was really creating the profiles we were looking for individuals that we believed might be vulnerable. And I would think that would be something that they might be looking to gather, not necessarily specifically against the candidate, but information about the individuals that the candidate is interacting with and creating profiles on them.
Yeah, that's completely accurate. That's something that China is doing, as you probably know, given your background. China is doing that, especially with the Office of Personnel Management database that they breached last year with records more than 21 million people in it. And Russia and China in particular are building those databases to try to be able to pull information on anyone they need to pull it from, essentially within the country.
Rick, if I can ask Rudy one more quick question.
Sure, go ahead.
And that's this. Michael Dougherty is a good friend of mine. He wrote the book, The Devil Inside the Beltway. He's considered one of the top 10 cybersecurity experts in the country now and has been touring and so forth. I wanted your opinion with regards to what do you think needs to be done to create better security? Can government solve it, or is it a private sector issue?
They're probably it's probably both. Whatever the average is, whatever the average level of security is, if you are a high-level target, you're going to want to have better security than that. So, even if we have across-the-board improvement, Donald Trump, Hillary Clinton are going to need to be one step above that. So are their staffs. What does that mean at this point? That means, for example, not being on social media, not putting out information about yourself in biographies. A mistake that Clinton's aide, Sidney Blumenthal, made. There are things like that. Not relying on, very basically not relying on security questions like where were you born? If that information is out there, that was, I think, a mistake Sidney Blumenthal made, but it's a mistake that's very common. You need, at this point, that's what being a little bit ahead of everybody else means. In the future, that might mean something else. But that's one thing, just making sure you're ahead of the curve. And then secondly, the U.S. government is trying to take steps to try to make advancements in this area to increase its defensive capability. I think that some of the other countries, China and Russia, caught up to us faster than we realized. So the U.S. is still trying to correct the course it was on in order to get its previous level of superiority back.
Hey, Rudy, what about codes? Maybe these candidates or the government or government official now need to send out their emails encrypted in codes. I'm thinking of the Enigma machine that was used by the Germans during the Second World War. The Japanese had their own codes. Yeah, they were broken, but for a while they were effective.
One thing people can do is use end-to-end encryption. You have technical experts. Representative Blue in Congress is one that comes to mind. He recently said he started using WhatsApp, a smartphone application that uses end-to-end encryption so that data can be stolen while it's in transit. What does that do? That prevents, for example, a foreign government from using a vulnerability in a telecommunications network to retrieve the information as it's being sent. Does it protect against phishing attacks? No. So if you're making the mistake of essentially allowing your password to get stolen, that's not going to help you. But the end-to-end encryption, I think, is pretty much encapsulates what you're talking about, and that is a good step people can take. WhatsApp is one application that offers it. iMessage through an Apple iPhone is another form of encryption. And then applications like Signal, Telegram, and Viber are other options for that.
Pastor Greg, I know you had one more question.
One more real quick question, and that is this. Donald Trump, one of his preferred methods of social media is his Twitter account. Does that create a vulnerability for him that the others don't have?
I would say not. Probably not in any critical sense. All of the candidates have Twitter accounts. If you're putting out information that is personal, that creates a vulnerability. If you have a simple password, that creates a vulnerability. But simply having the account, I would say, does not create an issue.
Rudy, we want to thank you for joining us on the Conservative Commandos radio show. How can people follow your work?
WashingtonExaminer.com, or I'm on Twitter as Rudy Tackala.
Rudy Tackala, I want to thank you so much. Take care. God bless.
Thanks, Rudy.
Sir. You as well.
And you are listening to the Conservative Commandos radio show with Pastor Greg Young. And a little will be coming in soon. I'm Rick Trader, and we're coming to you from the studios of the Conservative Commandos radio network at WNJC 1360 in Philadelphia and around the world on the internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, Red State Talk Radio, AM, FM 24/7. We're everywhere. We're everywhere. Coming up next, we're going to be speaking with Chris Harris. He's the Executive Director of unhyphenatedamerica.com. Be right back.
They say I'm nasty, but
This is Frank Giordano, president of Philly Pops. The Your Music Matters morning show and the Philly Pops have put together a great event on May 23rd at the Investors Bank Performing Arts Center in Washington Township. The Philly Pops presents the All South Jersey Jazz Festival. 6 finalist high school jazz bands, all from South Jersey, will perform. Schools were chosen during the recent South Jersey High School Jazz Band Competition on the Your Music Matters morning show on WNJC. At the concert, each band will be performing. The show will also feature the Philly Pops Big Band Ensemble. The highlight of the evening will be the announcement of the winning high school band, who will play with the Pops Ensemble. Tickets are available at the box office for $20 and $10 for students. Tickets are also available at Ticketmaster.com. More information about the competition can be found online by going to 1360radio.com or seniormatters.info. Hope to see you there on the 23rd and listen to these young people perform.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
What does it take to be the leader in production systems technology? To be the one company that solves production problems at any plant, for any product, and with any technology? It takes a 30-year record of success. It takes total mastery of complex technologies with a history of delivering success every time, without fail. Only one company can claim that high ground in manufacturing line optimization, data automation, and systems integration, and that's Philadelphia Control Systems. In factories worldwide, Philadelphia Control Systems programs, software, and engineering solutions deliver optimal performance and output flow with a record that can't be matched. Any plant, any product, any technology. Philadelphia Control Systems, the leader in production automation since 1982. 800-335-9811. PCS4automation.com. That's PCS, the number 4, automation.com.
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos Radio Network. We're establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired as I am about the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos Radio Network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. on WNJC Radio 1360 a.m. or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our websites, ConservativeCommandosRadioNetwork.com and CCRN.com for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where even more newsmakers go to be heard.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
From the East Coast to the West Coast and around the world on the internet, we're coming to you live from the CCRS studios. WNJC 1360. This is the Conservative Commandos radio show with your host, Rick Trader. The Conservative Commandos radio show, where the newsmakers go to be heard. You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando Radio Show.
Welcome back to the Conservative Commandos Radio Show. I'm Rick Trader. I want to thank Pastor Greg Young for sitting in first part of our show. But if you'd like to hear rebroadcasts of our shows, check out our website, ccrshow.com or ccrsnetwork.com. Morning is at 9 a.m. You can log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com at 1 p.m., roarradio.net, or at 7 p.m., redstatetalkradio.com, or you could hear our show from your telephone by calling 832-999-1199. Joining me now to finish out the show is my very good friend, Anna Little. And Anna, we do have our next guest with us, so will you please make the introduction?
I'd be happy to, Rick. Chris Harris serves as the executive director of unhyphenatedamerica.org. He is a staunch Christian conservative who moved from Colorado to Washington, D.C. as a congressional intern for long-serving U.S. Representative Joel Heffley. He has also worked as a volunteer on multiple political campaigns at the statewide and national level. Chris has been a guest and a co-host on numerous radio shows in the U.S. as well as shows from Great Britain, and he's also been a guest panelist on the Don Lemon Show on CNN and the Megyn Kelly Show on Fox News, as well as appearing on Turkish radio and television network, and he's an Air Force brat who spent his formative years overseas in Europe and Asia. Chris, welcome back to Conservative Commandos Radio Show.
Hey, thanks for having me. Made me sound like I'm important or something.
Well, you are important, and you earned all of those credentials, and therefore it is, I guess, your honor to have to listen to what you've achieved, and it's our honor to explain it to you. So we're glad that you're here. I love the title of your article, Why We're Losing the Culture. And you have a quote here from President John Adams. We have no government armed with power, capable of contending with human passions, unbridled by morality and religion. Avarice, ambition, revenge, or gallantry would break the strongest cords of our Constitution as a whale goes through a net. Our Constitution is designed only for a moral and religious people. It is wholly inadequate for any other. And that is a quote by President John Adams. Talk to us about the title of your article and why you chose that quote.
Well, actually, Anna, that article was written by one of my writers that I just brought on board, and she's the editor now for Unhyphenated America, Shatoya Bradley. And Shatoya is a very sharp lady. She's actually the wife of an Air Force veteran and the homeschooling mother of 4 boys. So she's got her hands full all days. But, we really connected just on the same ideological front, and she's walking out her own beliefs, and she brought a lot of that to this article. We, of course, we mastermind, and so we talk about articles that we're going to publish and everything. But when she came and said, "Hey, I want to do this article," I said, "Hey, run with it. It'll be great." As far as losing the culture, the subject of the culture has been addressed ad nauseum. But you know what? It's never. You can never talk about it too much because that's ultimately what we're dealing with. We're dealing with ideological, which are cultural differences. And what we're losing in America is the foundational beliefs of our culture. And as I've said, and people can choose to disagree or not, but you cannot have America without Judeo-Christian principles, things such as life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Which, by the way, for your listeners, you can check out our website. It's at www.unhyphenatedamerica.org. And what people ask for, what is Unhyphenated America about? We just say quite simply, once again, if you're a believer in life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, if you understand and embrace those foundational principles, then you are an American. And there's no need for any prefix or suffix. You're just an American.
Yes, and I think that is exactly what our founders intended when they drafted that Constitution, which is the roadmap or the structure for the government that we're experiencing right now, this democratic republic. But, I think we do lose our way in the course of that, and the morality, which was the moral center, which our founding fathers did not question. As a matter of fact, they based our form of government on that moral center, is now in question by those who would seek to use the freedoms that our founders protected with that moral center in order to liberate us from that moral center. And that's exactly what I think the founders were concerned about in this form of government, that with government by the people and for the people, if the people go astray from their moral center, so does the government. And so I want you to talk to that a little bit.
Well, in our form of government, we have a federal constitutional republic, right? And in our form of government, like I said, and John Adams addressed this, is that we have representatives. Well, here's the ugly truth that many other people, specifically conservatives, don't want to acknowledge, is the fact that, unfortunately, we have a government that represents us. Now, it might not represent you and I as conservatives, but when I say us, I mean collectively Americans, us. Unfortunately, we have a government that represents us as our overwhelming culture, and it's really tragic because it's been an inch-by-inch thing. It's been a put a frog in a pot of lukewarm water. And I don't know if you're familiar with that analogy or some of your listeners are, but here's the story: is that if you take a frog and you have a pot of boiling water and you try to dump that frog in that pot of boiling water, he will immediately jump out. That as soon as he feels that heat, he will hop right out. He might get a little bit burned, but he's going to jump right out. But if you take that frog and you put him in a pot of lukewarm water and you slowly bring the heat up, he'll stay in there and boil to death because they're cold water, they're cold-blooded creatures, and so they adjust their body to the temperature, so they'll slowly boil to death. And that's what's happened with America. This is not something that's happened overnight. I think that's the biggest mistake, Anna, is people think that we're waking up like, oh my gosh, how did this happen? Well, there's been people who've been screaming from the mountaintops, hey, this is going to happen. We've been saying this. This is a decades-long thing that's taking place. We didn't just end up with transgendered bathrooms overnight. This was something that they had been steadily pushing. And the mistake that we make as conservatives is that we think that being tolerant makes us good Christians. And so every time they will push something, we say, well, and hold on. As soon as you say, well, see, that means you're about to capitulate. You're about to lose.
You're absolutely right. And we talk about the freedoms of others, but we forget about that moral center. I have to take us to break just to identify the station. Can you hold on, Chris, because we're not done with you yet? Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. Listeners, we are coming to you live from the Conservative Commandos Radio Network studios, WNJC 1360, our flagship station in Philadelphia, and around the world on the Internet with American Patriots Broadcasting, TalkStream Live, SHR Media, K98 Talk, iHeartRadio, HighPlainsDailyNews.com, and AMFM 24/7, TheRoll.com. I'm Anna Little, and I'm with producer Rick Trader and Silent John Forsyth on the boards in the studio. We're speaking this segment with Chris Harris, Executive Director of UnhyphenatedAmerica.org. We'll all be right back with you after this break.
I really don't care. That's my prerogative. They say I'm nasty, but I...
The Conservative Commandos radio show is expanding to become the Conservative Commandos radio network. We are establishing a front line of conservative radio broadcasters and ironclad patriots to declare war against the madness of liberalism and the Obama administration. Are you tired of the disregard for our Constitution? Do you still have faith in the American dream? Are you looking for sensible, smart radio? If so, listen to the Conservative Commandos radio network every weekday from 11 a.m. to 7 p.m. and Saturdays from 2 to 6 p.m. on WNJC Radio, 1360 on your AM dial, or around the world on the internet at WNJCradio.com. Check out our website, ccrsnetwork.com, for rebroadcasts and network updates. We are the Conservative Commandos Radio Network, where now even more newsmakers go to be heard.
Hi, we're David and Patty Barrickman of Wildflower Ridge Honey, beekeepers for 49 years. I want to tell you about a great survival and a multi-use product called Trail Rations. It is pure honey and a product of the USA. Trail Rations comes in a food-grade 12-ounce, very durable and reusable pouch, ready for immediate use or for long-term storage because honey is the only food that never spoils. Honey is instant energy and goes right straight to your bloodstream. Honey is one of the best all-natural survival foods, natural sweetener right straight from Mother Nature. Honey is also antiviral, fungal, and bacterial. It's your first aid in a pouch. Carry one in your backpack or your bug-out bag. Find us on Facebook, Wildflower Ridge Honey, or call 765-641-9972, 765-641-9972.
I think we should make public colleges and universities tuition-free.
Climate change is directly related to the growth of terrorism.
Remove the federal prohibition on marijuana.
Climate change poses immediate risks to our national security.
I did not email any classified material to anyone. There is no classified material. Certainly well aware of the classification requirements.
We have a lot to learn from democratic socialist governments that have existed in countries like Denmark, Sweden, Finland, Norway.
This campaign is about a political revolution to transform this country.
You know? Now more than ever, we need our voice in Washington. Now more than ever, we need Sharon Angle in Washington. Go to runsharonangle.com and help us draft Sharon Angle to run for U.S. Senate.
You can call the Conservative Commandos radio show at 856-227-1360. Your opinion counts at 856-227-1360.
This is Congressman Alan West, and you're listening to the Conservative Commando radio show.
Welcome back, listeners. Welcome back to Conservative Commandos radio show with Rick Trader and Anna Little. If you would like to hear a rebroadcast of today's show, please check out our website, CCRS Network, and ccrshow.com. Or mornings at 9 a.m., log on to leadingedgeradionetwork.com. Or at 1 p.m., roarradio.net. And at 7 p.m., redstatetalkradio.com. And now you can listen to Conservative Commandos from any phone by calling 832-999-1199. We're speaking this segment with Chris Harris, Executive Director of unhyphenatedamerica.org, and he's been talking to us about why we're losing the culture. And just before the break, Chris, you had started to tell us that, you know, we think we're good Christians when we're tolerant, and that when we start to say, well, that we're really capitulating. Tell me what you meant by that.
Well, what happens is that what the left does is they make what would appear on the surface to be a reasonable argument. And the problem is that I think so many of us don't even believe in we don't even have to have true convictions. And I think a lot of that has to do with ignorance, right? Is that kind of going back to what John Adams was saying, is that, you know, you have to have a knowledge of what your convictions are. And when you do, you filter everything, which is your worldview, right? This is what what Shatoya was writing about. This article was about a worldview. When you have that worldview, a biblical worldview, which is the foundation of Americanism, then you filter everything that people say through that worldview, and you sit there and say, okay, they're asking me to do this. how does that relate to life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness? How does all that relate to? And, it has to go through the if-then statements that you have going through your mind. You say, well, wait a minute, this ultimately violates this or that. So, you know what? I know it might seem on the surface irrational for me to say, no, I'm not going to go along with that. But ultimately, that's the decision that you have to make. Because it's almost like, to me, being a parent from the standpoint of you have to think about the long-term interest of your child. Your child might be whining and moaning, and you're sitting there going, gosh, I just want them to be quiet. Or I want to make them happy. That's another thing, is that I want to make them happy, so I'll go along with it because it makes them happy. But you know what? Your child needs vegetables. They need fruit and vegetables, not ice cream and candy. And that's the thing. We keep going along saying, well, if it'll shut them up, it'll make them happy, we'll go ahead and say that. But now then we look further down the road, the child has tooth decay or the child is obese or whatever like that. And this is the thing. If you are a conservative, you're supposed to have a mature Christian worldview, or a worldview that has some influence, I should say, based off of the Christian beliefs, because that's what the foundational beliefs are of this country. Then you'll filter those things, and you won't capitulate every time they make these demands that we now see today ending up with, hey, we should allow men to go into women's bathrooms. Men should be able to go into the bathrooms with little girls. This is how we ended up there. We said, well, okay, and, 5-10 years down the road, this is where we are.
Well, we tend to delegate, don't we? We delegate our responsibilities to these elected officials, these politicians. They know what they're doing down there in Washington. We're busy making ends meet up here. And yet, I'm looking at the reference in the article to Total Truth, which was written by, I think, Nancy Pearcey. And the conclusion in Total Truth is that politics may not be the fastest route to moral reform. It actually may be ordinary Christians living their daily lives and not tolerating things that go against their core beliefs. That may be the fastest route to moral reform. So this idea of delegating to the elected official or the politician who knows better, that's part of the problem. Do you agree?
Absolutely. I mean, there's a reason why. I mean, I tell people the more, it's just like a reason I study my Bible. There's a reason why I study the foundation of this country. When I study the Constitution, which was built on the framework of the Declaration of Independence. And the Declaration of Independence was built on the foundation of Judeo-Christian morality and principles. And when you start studying those things, you realize federalism was created, our system was created to be a federal system so that you and your household as a moral character, you and your husband, can raise your kids. And if you're doing the right thing according to a biblical worldview, then I don't have to worry about calling the cops on you because you're trying to violate my unalienable right. Each individual is supposed to take care of that. Now, if there's a larger issue, then that will go up to the city level. If there's a large issue that can't be resolved between you and I or between the cities, then it'll go up to the county, and then it'll go up to the state level, and then it finally reaches the federal level. There's a reason why we have these things. You should not have the top down. It should not be the President of the United States making decisions on things that are taking place in your household. That was not the way our system was created to be. The president should be focusing on national security. That's the reason why the Constitution, the first thing it says, the president is commander-in-chief, not bathroom, designator-in-chief,
Yeah, and I think that when we have the government involved in too many of the minutiae, the smaller aspects of our lives, we end up with more of a dictatorship, and then the freedoms are lost. But I want to talk, too, about being involved in our churches. We're talking about our core moral values, and we're better to express those core moral values than within our churches. And then there's the whole salt and light idea, where if you're expressing your moral values in your church, you should be able to go into, well, what policy in government best reflects my moral values? And yet we have that in contrast to the idea that there should be a separation between church and state, which obviously the founders didn't believe in. Look at the quote from John Adams that we started the segment with. You can't have this Constitution without a moral and religious people. There's no separation there. And yet you've got people that would advocate a separation between church and state. The IRS then tries to enforce that with a 501c3 designation for churches, which then puts the church hesitant to discuss these things. Talk to us about that dynamic and what we as not clergy, but as congregants in our churches ought to be doing to make sure that salt and light really does happen.
Well, your vote actually does matter. I know it might not seem like it at this point, but your vote does matter. You have to start, once again, at the local level. But before I go there, I want to talk real quick about that whole term. I mean, I get I kind of hunch my neck and shoulders every time I hear somebody say separation in church and state, because, once again, that statement is nowhere in any of our foundational documents. It's not in the Declaration. It's not in the Northwest Ordinance. It's not in the Constitution. It's not in any one of the 50 state constitutions. It comes solely from a letter between Thomas Jefferson and the Danbury Baptist Church of Connecticut, where he was addressing their concern that this whole First Amendment thing was somehow going to be used by the government to infringe upon the sanctity of the church. And he was assuring them that no, that the First Amendment actually creates a wall, a separation between the church and the state to protect the church from the state. We see it, and what is the church? The church is us. The church is the body of Christ. So the church should be influencing the federal government, because you and I as individuals, listen, stop leaving your values outside the voting booth. That's the most ridiculous thing in the world. You are supposed to take your values with you. Your vote is your vote. We've had people who've been convinced, a lot of us have been convinced as conservatives, that somehow if I take my values and I cast a ballot based on my values, that I'm somehow oppressing other people. When here's the bottom line, the left has no problem whatsoever with taking their values into the voting booth. They vote their values more than so-called Christian voters, more than so-called values voters do. Every discussion that the left has are about value. And so we go to church every Sunday, and supposedly if your pulpit's not dead, they're talking about the values, which are a biblical worldview, and then you leave church and you turn it off. How do you do that? If that is if those are your values, that's who you are. You can no more turn it off than I can stop being a man. That's who I am. I'm not transgendered. I know I'm a man. I got an X and a Y chromosome. I'm a man. I can't stop being a man. And if those are your true values, you can't stop being a Christian conservative, and you should carry that with you into the voting booth.
Beautiful words. Thank you so much, Christopher Harris. Unfortunately, time flies when we're having fun. We've got to wrap you up. Please remind our listeners where they can go to follow your work and to stay plugged in on this very important issue.
Once again, you can check out the website. It's www.unhyphenatedamerica.org. There's no dashes, no spaces, unhyphenatedamerica.org. And you can check us up on the Facebook page, just Unhyphenated America. Love to hear from you. Shoot me a message, and love to hear from you.
Thank you so much. Chris Harris, come back and see us again soon.
Thank you, Anna.
And I want to thank you for dropping by. I appreciate any bit of time that I can get from you. I know that your day job is important to you and your family, and, well, sometimes it just gets in the way.
It certainly does, and this is still the best time I spend all week. I really thoroughly enjoy Conservative Commandos.
All right. And, I also want to thank our other guests today, Rudy Takla, Robert Knight, our most recent guest, Cliff Harris. Want to thank Pastor Greg Young for sitting in. Also want to thank Mr. John Forsyth Jr. for working the boards. But for right now, we're out of time. We got to run. We got to go. Take care. God bless. We'll see you tomorrow on the radio.